Hello, you guys. Today we're going to review how to write a linear equation. But before we do that, we need to get some foundational knowledge cleared up. So let's just go over two quick things. The first thing we want to go over is, what is slope? Some of you all remember that slope, symbolized by the letter M, is equal to rise over run. That is helpful whenever we have a graph. But there's also another way that we can find our slope, depending on if we have a table. And that way is that your slope is equal to your change in y over your change in x. Okay? That triangle actually means the word change. And from there, we know that in order to find the change, all we're doing is finding the difference. And difference means to subtract. So that's basically saying y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so remember, change is the same thing as difference, and difference means that we need to subtract. So in order to find the slope of a graph, the first thing you need is 2 points. So I'm going to graph 2 points here, and then we can find the slope. Okay, so those are the 2 points I decided to pick. So if I wanted to find the slope between those 2 points, I would find my rise over run. Well, think about it. From the point on the left, I need to figure out whether I am rising or if I am falling. I know that's not a perfect straight line, but it's okay. That's representing a line. So I have to figure out whether I'm rising or falling. So look at the point all the way on the left here, and we need to figure out whether we're going up or down. Well, from the point on the left to the point on the right, I'm obviously going down. So I'm going to draw a little arrow pointing downward. Anytime you go down, that means that your number is going to be negative. So I'm actually going down 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to put a negative 4. And then I'm going to find my run, which is from left to right. And I'll put an arrow there. And I'm actually going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that is a positive because I'm going to the right. So when I look at this, my rise is negative 4. And my run is 6. And we all know that we need to simplify that. So my slope is actually equal to negative 2 over 3. Okay, so now, usually students find it easy to find the slope of a graph when it's given to them. But most students have the challenge of finding the slope of a table. So let's go over that. So remember, your rise is your change in your y values. Remember, change means difference. How do I change from one y value to the next? So I have to go from negative 21 to a negative 9. So from negative 21 to negative 9, I am going up 12. So positive. Going from negative 3 to 0, I am actually going up 3. Going from negative 9 to a negative 5, I'm going up 4. Going from 0 to 1, I'm actually going up 1. From 1 to 9, I'm actually going up 8. And from negative 5 to 27, I'm going up 32. So here's where most students get stuck at. Remember that your slope is rise over run. Okay? So you have to divide your differences. So remember, my differences in my y values are on the right hand side. The differences or my change of my x values on the left hand side. So I need to divide those to make sure that they are all the same. So let's do 12 divided by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So now I need to make sure that the other slopes or rise over runs are also 4. Well, what's 4 divided by 1? It's still 4. What's 32 divided by 8? That is also 4. So I know here that my slope is equal to 4. Okay, so that is how you find your slope. Okay, just make sure that when you're finding the slope of a table that you don't forget to divide your rises and your runs. That's the most important part. Okay, so the next thing is we need to figure out what is the y-intercept. Your y-intercept is basically the y value when x is 0. So your y-intercept is the y value when x is 0. So I'm going to show you an example on both of these. You can't be coming in and out making a video. This is my y-intercept here. So that means my y-intercept is a -9 in this case. So now that we know what a y-intercept is and we know what a slope is, let's look at writing equations of lines. So part 3, how do I write the equation of a line when given my slope and my y-intercept? This should be the easiest part because all you have to do is write your general equation. We know once again that y is equal to mx plus b. So remember, m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. I have already given you those two things. So I can say my equation is equal to, y is equal to, my slope is 4, so I put 4x. And my b is a -7, so I just put -7. Nothing more, nothing less. Same thing goes for b. I have y is equal to mx plus b. So I know y is going to be equal to -3 over 2x plus 13. Excuse me, let me erase that so it can fit onto the screen. And remember, your slope is a -3 over 2. That's why the negative sign is written there. Now, let's write an equation of a line if I give you a graph. So once again, you need to identify your y-intercept, and then you can find your slope by taking 2 points and finding your rise over run. So on this first one, I know that my y-intercept is a -4. And I need to also find another point that I can clearly see so that I can find my slope. So I see that 1, 1 is also a point. Okay, So I can use my rise over run. So from the red dot or red point to the green point, I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a positive 5. And I'm going right 1. So I know here that my slope is 5, which is my rise over run. And I need to simplify that. So my slope is just 5. Always make sure to simplify that. And then my y-intercept is where my graph touches the y-axis, which is my b. And that is at -4 on the y-axis. So my equation of my line is going to be y is equal to 5x minus 4. Okay, so let's try another example. So here we have a y-intercept at 4 on the y-axis, and I want to pick another point that is easy for me to see. So I can pick 4, -2. And be careful when you pick points. Make sure that they cross the green line. So the first thing we want to do is find the slope. Well, as I can see, my graph is going down from left to right, so my slope is going to be negative because I am falling. So if I'm falling, that means that my rise is negative. So I'm actually going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's a -6. And I'm going right 4. So once again, I need to look at my slope. So my slope is -6 over 4, which then simplifies to a -3 over 2. I want to leave it as a fraction. And my y-intercept here is at a +4. So now I can put everything together. Y is equal to -3 over 2x plus 4. That is the equation of that graph. Now, before we move on to the last part, I need you to make sure that anytime you are finding your slope from a graph, you pay attention to your scales of your axis. Your axis never does not always go by ones. I can count by 2s, I can count by 10s, I can count by 50s, 100s, 1,000, I can count by 0.5. So make sure that you are understanding that whenever you rise over run, you are paying attention to what your scales are. That is very, very important. Just because you're moving over two steps doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually moving over 2 units. So be careful of your scale. Last part. How do you write an equation when given a table? So let's refer and let's think back to what we went over before. So remember, writing an equation of a table, you need to be able to identify your y-intercept if you can, and you need to be able to tell your slope from a table if you can. So the easiest part to do first is to find your slope. So I want to find my change in y's over my change in x's. So that's my change in x's. So here I'm going up 1. From -2 to a +1, I'm going up 3. And from 1 to 4, I'm also going up 3. From 27 to 21, I went down 6. Excuse me for my sloppy handwriting. From 21 to 3, I'm going down 18. And from 3 to negative 15, I'm going down 18 more. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that all of your rises over runs are the exact same number. So let's talk through this. What is negative 6 divided by a positive 1? Negative 6. What is negative 18 divided by a positive 3? That's also a negative 6. So here I know that my slopes are the same. So here I can go ahead and put that my slope, or my m, is equal to negative 6. The next thing I need to do is I need to identify my y-intercept. Remember, your y-intercept is the y value when x is 0. Well, if we look at the table, I don't have any x values that are 0 here. So I need to go a further step. So we all know that the equation of a line is equal to y equals mx plus b. We already know what our slope is. So the only thing that we have to do is we have to find a point that we can use. We know that a point is x and y. So I'm going to deal with the point that's the easiest. So I'm going to use 1 and 3. 1 is x and 3 is y. So I can just plug in or substitute wherever they fit. Well, I know it's y equals. Well, what is the value of y? Y is 3 in that point. And it's going to be equal to, my slope is m again. We found m, and that was a negative 6. And we multiplied that by your x. Well, what is the x value of that point that we picked? It's a 1. And then we need to find b. So all you're doing here is basically simplifying and solving a one-step equation. So let's do this. So I'm just going to keep 3 equals, what is negative 6 times 1? Negative 6. Bring down my plus b. Well, in order for me to solve this, I need to add 6 on both sides. They cancel out here. So here I can see that my b, or my y-intercept, is 9. Because 3 plus 6 is 9. So now I can just piece it all together. I have my slope and I have my y-intercept. So here I know that my equation is y is equal to negative 6x plus 9. So once again, if your y-intercept is not given to you on the table, all you have to do is find your slope, your rises over runs, make sure that they are all the same, the exact same number. Once you do that, you can take one point, not all of them, but pick one point that you would want to work with for x and y. You will substitute those values from that point into x and y, your equation, and also plug in your slope. From there, you will simplify and solve for b, which is your y-intercept, and then put your slope and your b back into the equation like normal. So let's find the slope. So all of my runs here, I'm going from negative 7 to 0, so I'm adding 7. Here I'm going from 0 to 2, which means I'm adding 2. 2 to 6, which means I'm adding 4. And 6 to 9, which means I'm adding 3. So here I can see that all of my runs are all different. So I know that I'm going to have to divide every single one of them. From negative, for my rises, from negative 8.25 to negative 3, I went up 5.25. From negative 3 to negative 1.5, I went up or added 1.5. From negative 1.5 to a positive 1.5, I added 3. From 1.5 to 3.75, I added 2.25. So now, if you need to use a calculator, then do so. So I would take 5.25 and I would divide it by 7. I get 0.75. Well, let me make sure that all of the other ones are equal to 0.75. So I'm going to do 1.5 divided by 2. I get 0.75. 3 divided by 4, we all know is 0.75. And 2.25 divided by 3 is also 0.75. So here I know that my slope is equal to 0.75. Now all I need to do is look for the y-intercept. Well, once again, you need to look and see where you have any x values that are equal to 0. I see where x is 0. So here I know that my y-intercept is a -3. So my equation of my line here is going to be y is equal to my slope, which is 0.75, x minus 3, excuse me, 0.75x minus 3. One last extra example to make sure that writing an equation from a table is clear, since that's what we have been having a hard time with this whole time. So once again, if you have a table, you need to find your rises over your runs. Now remember, rise is your y's. So I need to find the difference in my y values. These are my rises. Remember, you can only rise up or fall down, which is your y-axis. So from 13 to 19, I'm going up 6. From 19 to 25, I'm going up 6. From 25 to 31, excuse me, I'm going up 6 as well. So here I can tell that all of my rises are the same, so all of my runs should be the same. So from 2 to 4, I'm going up 2. 4 to 6, I'm also going up 2. And 6 to 8, I'm going up 2. So when I think about my slope, remember slope is rise over run. So my rise is 6 over 2, and when I simplify, that means that it's actually 3. The next thing I need to do is find my y-intercept. So I have to look for where my x values are 0. None of these x values here are 0, so that means that I'm going to have to use a point so I can substitute it in. So we already know once again that y is equal to m times x plus b. Well, let's pick a point that's easy to deal with. 2 and 13 are my two smallest numbers for x and y. So that's the that's the point I'm going to use, excuse me. So y is actually 13. I'm getting that from the point. And it's equal to my slope, which is 3, times the x value of that point, which is 2, and add b, because we don't know it, so it has to stay b. So simplify. This means we get 13 is equal to 6 plus b. 6 comes from 3 times 2. One-step equation. So I need to subtract 6 on both sides. I want to get b by itself. The 6 is on the right-hand side, cancel. And 13 minus 6 is 7. So I know 7 is equal to b. So I can put everything all together. So your equation of your line is y is equal to m, which is your slope. We found m to be 3. X plus your y-intercept, which is b. And we found that y-intercept to be 7. So we put plus 7. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I have cleared up any misunderstandings that you have.